surprised when she shouts nigger from the rooftops, when she shouts nigger for the world to hear, when she gets kicked out of her sorority or expelled from school. There's no shock by how easily hate spews from her tongue, how she claims to cut off water to save those from shithole countries. If anything, she is presidential. If anything, she's a humanitarian. I mean, what about her isn't American? What about her doesn't breed our exceptionalism? What about her isn't proud of her roots? The way she barges into unwanting ears, claiming those New Jersey roots. You know, there's a way that we remove the cancer. Only after it has spread. We take out some of the tumor, but always leave some there to grow, and this is what they call the remission. The disappearance of signs and symptoms, but not necessarily the disease. We never deal with the disease. She is just one pigment-ignorant cell in a tumor, melanin malignant, spreading through an already dying body. America has been in stage shithole lung cancer for years, and you're just now realizing we can't breathe? She may be gone, but her confidence is something that was cultivated in a New Jersey home, festering in Alabama winter. She is only a recurrence, a sign that the cancer never left. She'd be a distant recurrence of Trump, a regional recurrence of Charlottesville, a local recurrence of students at UA shouting nigger not long ago or trying to bring white supremacists to this campus. There is a way in which we remove the cancer only after it is spread. And we sit there and wait for it to come back. And it does. Every time, and it will. I wrote that poem in January, and the idea was that I wanted to start a conversation on campus in terms of how we address race relations. And it's this idea of using poetry as a catalyst for these crucial conversations that I came here today to do this TIE Talk with you guys. So before we get into this idea of poetry being a catalyst for crucial conversations, I want to tell you guys a little bit about me. First, I want to thank Tara for giving a wonderful introduction. I was born in Rochester, New York, and raised in Kansas. And I got my BA here in Middle East Relations. And I have 11 siblings that are mostly pretty cool. I'm the vice president of the Alabama Student Association for Poetry. The president is my wonderful and amazing girlfriend, Kaylee Webster. And shouts out to everybody from ASAP who came out here today. I'll tell you guys a little bit more about ASAP later. And also, I love bacon. Just throwing that out. So, why poetry? Why do I think poetry can be a catalyst for crucial conversation? Well, a lot of the work I do comes from Gloria Anzaldúa, who wrote this book called Light in the Dark. And in it, she tells us that writing, creative writing, and this idea of poetry is a process of discovery, where we're gaining knowledge and insight. She tells us of the Koyol Shoki imperative, which is pretty much us restoring ourselves through expressing ourselves through different forms of creative art, healing the wounds that we may have, repairing the damage. And that's what she really wants to get at with that idea. She talks about the violations que hacen pedazos nuestros almas, or that shatter our souls, and how we can work to reconstruct ourselves through expressing ourselves. So there are multiple different avenues that we talk about utilizing poetry. Anzaldúa says we must bear witness to what haunts us. Bear witness to those damages we experience when we step to the stage or when we are putting forth some form of creative writing. It's by bearing witness that we can then start to build community. Angela Davis expresses to us that it's in collectivities that we find reservoirs of hope. So in building this community, in expressing ourselves, in bearing witness, that's when we start to repair that damage and restore ourselves and our communities. And it's from that we become the healing in the wound. And Anzaldúa tells us that we must become that healing. We must become those healing agents, and we must work to use our creative selves and our writing selves to bring forth the community that then allows us to move forward and repair that damage. And I've been talking pretty theoretically so far, and you're probably thinking, okay, cool, poetry, what are practical applications? And that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about today. 3 practical applications where you can see poetry starting these crucial conversations. The classroom, the institution, and in community. So first, the classroom. The classroom is a site for learning and a site for teaching, and you can utilize the classroom to teach people through poetry. Poetry being that catalyst. Think of a class where you're addressing a tough issue, such as racism, okay, or sexism, or different ideas that we deal with, forms of oppression. You can actually use, instead of, say, watching a video, or in conjunction with watching a video, reading some poetry. My poetry has been used in the classroom multiple times. In fact, another way that you can do this is through presentations and projects. The book that I wrote, Made from My Mother's Ceilings, which today is the 1-year anniversary, woohoo. And it's also, J. Cole dropped an album today as well. And I dropped a spoken word album on the same day because J. Cole is my spirit animal. But through presentations and projects, because I was doing a project on combining gender and race studies and seeing how gender and race work together, I wanted to start a conversation about black masculinity, so I wrote a bunch of poetry about it and threw it into a book, and somehow it got published. Finally, workshops. ASAP puts on a lot of workshops that we see happening within the classroom setting, where we go into classrooms and we get to talk about different topics and ideas that allow us to start different conversations that people may not have wanted to have before. By expressing ourselves and bearing witness to what haunts us, even in the classroom, we can start these conversations. Another area that we can see this, if it works, there it goes, is the institution. So I want you guys to think of institutions as these places that establish societal norms, typically rules as well. So the University of Alabama is a clear instance of an institution. Think of the music industry and how they set certain norms. Or our government now, it establishes norms for society to follow. Those are institutions, and what we have to do when we're bearing witness to what haunts us is challenge these norms, challenge these institutions. That's how I had met Taryn, through the We Are Done organization, and challenging our school in terms of how it looks at diversity. We can do public performance, like Tide Talks. Those can also start conversations. At the last Tide Talk, I did a poem about UAPD advisories that is now going to put me in work with UAPD. A few Tide Talks ago, I talked about kneeling in front of the anthem, and it actually put me in touch with the Department of Veteran Affairs here on campus. In both of these instances, we see poetry working as a catalyst to start a crucial conversation, where people hear poetry and then they're ready to respond. You can also do critical publications. That poem I did at the beginning of this performance, or this talk, I had posted on Facebook. I wanted people to know exactly how I felt after the incident. And finally, counter events. Hosting protests, or hosting open mics that are countering other events that may happen on campus. Just yesterday, we had an open mic for diversity to counter an event that didn't happen because it shouldn't have been happening in the first place. But these are all opportunities where we see ourselves challenging the institution and using poetry to do that. But remember, poetry is acting here as a catalyst for a conversation that must happen afterwards. And finally, we have the community. There it goes. There it went. There it went back. Ha. Community is one of my favorite things to talk about. And this is where I really get to brag on the Alabama Student Association for Poetry, because one of the things that we love to do is utilize poetry to facilitate these crucial conversations, using poetry as that catalyst. Open mics. People can come to our open mic events and they get 5 minutes to talk about absolutely whatever they want. And the best part is, after that open mic, you have opportunities to talk to the artists that you saw perform. You have opportunities to have those crucial conversations. Say somebody said something on the stage that touched you. You can then go talk to them about it. Additionally, you can have celebratory events. Just 2 months ago in this very room, ASAP hosted the Blackout event to celebrate Black History Month in the wake of some racial tensions at the university. And because of our efforts, we were able to win Organization Event of the Year, working with other different organizations on campus to put forth a celebratory event to start talking about how we look at race and how we can celebrate Black identity. There are also ways you can do fundraisers. In the wake of everything that had happened in Puerto Rico, ASAP put on a talent show, open mic, poetry slam that functioned as a hurricane relief fundraiser. We had over 200 people arrive, and we were able to raise hundreds of dollars for hurricane relief because we used poetry as that catalyst to start that crucial conversation. And finally, workshops, workshops, workshops. Always putting on different workshops for the community to give back. Remember, we are the University of Alabama, but we are within a city, Tuscaloosa. And there is so much we can do in terms of providing workshops for different students who may not have the privilege to step onto this campus and learn the things that we learn. And by putting on different sort of workshops, you can introduce students to writing who would have never thought that, hey, I can use poetry as a tool to express myself, to bear witness to what haunts me every day when I am walking into my classroom, say at a high school, middle school, or even elementary school level. So there are a few things that I want to leave you guys with in terms of this Tide Talk and what I want you to take away from it. Initially, the idea is to facilitate. Remember, poetry itself is not the conversation. Poetry is simply the catalyst. You have to look at poetry as something that can start a conversation, not the conversation itself. There is a lot of work that must be done once you step off the stage that begins to create the change you want to see. Next, be the healing. When Ansel Dua says, let us be the healing of the wound, she says that we ourselves are healing agents. We, through expressing ourselves and through having those conversations, can work to mend relations. That's how we build a sense of community. Another way to build a sense of community is always looking at ways to give back. Always look at different ways that you can express yourself and allow others to express themselves as well. It's not always about your opportunity, but maybe the opportunity you are presenting for someone else. And finally, make sure to always have fun while you're doing it. That's another way that you can always work to build a community, because if people can see that you're having a lot of fun, they're going to want to have that sort of fun too. Stepping up in front of a mic and expressing yourself and bearing witness to what haunts you is a hard thing. But if you're having fun and the people around you are having fun, that's a great way you can figure out how to build that sense of community and build a sense of confidence in terms of expressing yourself. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you guys that a lot of this stuff you can actually see happening in action with our poetry organization, which you should follow on Instagram at ASAP_UA. But I'm going to leave you guys with one more poem that talks about specifically how we can be healing. Let us be the healing of the wound. Let us be red blood cell catalyst, the collagen crossing the chasm. Let us be the healing, the help, the home, the hospital, both doctor and patient. Let us be the wound, repairing itself, deciding to recover on its own terms. Let us be the healing of the wound, the seasoning of the chicken, the laying of the edges, the flavor in your ear. Let us be the healing. Let us be the hurt healed, the pain past, the oppression overcome. Let us be anything but still, not still alive, but living, not still here, but thriving. Let us remember still may counter the movement. Let us be everything they tell us we can't be, like president, again. Like teacher, again. Like human, again. Let us be the healing, the ham hock, the hot wings, the hot sauce. Let us be the cocoa butter, the coconut oil, the blue magic, the shea butter. Let us be the inspiration, the reason someone decided to wake up today. Let us be the artist, the creator. Let us be world builders, forging new paths, new realities, trailblazers in a world of flames. Let us be the healing. Let us be the healing. Let us be the healing. Let us be the healed. Thank y'all so much.